Now, the thing that's interesting about the Namara inscription is, of course, the King of the Arabs is a really important terminology there, because it means that, there is something called Arabs that you can be a king of. And so, this now is where the debate can really start among specialists, because it's like, okay, well, if he says he's king of the Arabs, and there clearly are Arabs that are a kingdom. But what I think is possibility there, and what I tried to show as a possibility, is that that's a title that's speaking towards the Roman interests. That the Roman had something called the Provincia Arabia, the province of Arabia, which is now sort of southern Syria and Jordan today. And that this was part of that sort of long line of administrative terms to think about Arabia. And so if they had an ally in that region, they would just refer to that guy as sort of king of the Arabs in the sort of very early period, like the 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century AD. And that Imr al-Qais is of that inscription is using that Roman title. And so it's not necessarily the title of a community that he controls, but it's his title from the Roman Empire. So it's actually, because he's entitled to call himself that, it's a sign of status. Now, what's going on with Maʿadd is also interesting, because Maʿadd is mentioned along with a bunch of other tribal groups in the Namara inscription, sort of Madhij and Asad and a couple others. And so what I think is probably the case is that at the time of Imr al-Qais's inscription, which is 300 years before the rise of Islam, Maʿadd was probably just a kind of a small group. But over those 300 years that bring us up to the dawn of Islam, the way that geopolitics worked in Central Arabia made Maʿadd a kind of a larger and larger confederation. And more different peoples decided that while they had one tribal identity, they could also be sort of a sub-tribe of Maʿadd. And so Maʿadd had this process of like 300 years of growing from being potentially just one of many tribes to an umbrella term to cover a large number of tribes. And that these tribes were the ones who were not allied to the Byzantine Romans, who were not allied to the Persians, who were not allied to the Yemenis in the south, who were kind of trying to maintain a degree of independence in the center of Arabia. And so Maʿadd became their preferred term. And then Islam happened. And then all of these different populations from South Arabia, from Central Arabia, and the former allies of the Byzantines and the Persians kind of all joined up basically under the caliphate. And then it's like, okay, now we can't use Maʿadd anymore, because it just meant the Central Arabian guys. We need a new term. And that's where sort of Arab kind of becomes one of the very popular terms. But this takes like 100 years to happen.
I find that very